good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Shadicstick, dropping some hot frog on this mic. Today we're going to be talking about Sonic Frontiers, more specifically one of my biggest concerns for the game, and that's critic outlook. One of the things that the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise has had trouble with is really getting on board with critics, or critics getting on board with Sonic, more specifically. That's mostly because of the rocky history of Sonic in 3D. No matter how you view Sonic, its overall history in 3D has been rocky. I don't necessarily think the transition from 2D to 3D was a rough transition. That's a bunch of bull. But when you look at Sonic in 3D, it's never been super consistent. And many people make fun of Sega for saying, oh, Sonic finds his footing in 3D with Sonic Colors. But to critics, that's when Sonic found his footing in 3D. And let me explain. Sonic games, since basically after Sonic Adventure 2, have not reviewed super well. And we're not gonna focus on the user scores on Metacritic for this video, mostly because I feel like they're not indicative of the critic reviews, and also they've changed with time. The biggest example I can give is Sonic Unleashed. It was at like a 7.5 for a really long time, or around a 7.6 for its user score, and it's gone up steadily over the past few years. I mean, I'm pretty sure last year it was like at like a 7.9, and now it's at an 8.3, showing that with time people warm up to games, and conversely people can feel differently about games or feel negatively about games. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm leaving the user score out because, especially with the Sonic community, you have this, I guess, era of people suddenly going back and loving a game and then suddenly hating a game, and I don't feel like that's really indicative of the games themselves, or not necessarily the games themselves, but mostly of how the game was viewed in its time. But first, we're going to be starting off with the reviews of Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and then Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 on Dreamcast. I will not have Sonic Adventure 1's, critic score and Metacritic score up, mostly because it's not on Metacritic. I feel like it'd be in the high 80s, somewhere around there, mostly because for the time I feel like it was relatively revolutionary. But the GameCube re-release was not looked at too fondly, and further re-releases were looked at much worse. Now let's start with Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut. In honesty, the GameCube version of Sonic Adventure is my favorite version because it doesn't hurt my eyes when I look at any water or anything like that and any of the textures, but it also has like the most, I don't know, it's just my favorite version of it. But reviewers did not like this when it came out, and honestly I can understand where they're coming from. This came out in like 2003, right? So by that time it had already been like 5 or so years since Sonic Adventure came out, and there'd been a lot of changes in the platformer game since then. So a lot of games were a lot more polished, and people knew what they were doing with 3D platformers by this point. I mean, even Sega and Sonic Team had improved on 3D platformers by this point, because 2001 rolls around and Sonic Adventure 2 has an 89 on Metacritic. Its Metascore is 89, which is incredibly good, because Sonic Adventure 2, honestly, I consider that one of the best platformers of all time. But even for then, it's still kind of going to feel the, I guess, the burn from going multi-platform or releasing on another platform. And Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on GameCube, it wasn't received as well as it had been back when it was on Dreamcast. Maybe this is because more people own GameCubes. And think about it like this. The GameCube wasn't even a console that sold well for Nintendo. It sold like 20 some odd million units. The Dreamcast didn't even pass 10 million. So you have a much smaller sample size. Is it because the sample size increased or because of the quality of the game? We won't really know, but I'm pretty sure it's because of the sample size. I think the game's quality was pretty good. I just think there simultaneously weren't enough people to play this version of the game and give it like the love that it deserved, or at least on the side of critics, especially considering Sega's moving to a Nintendo console. I expect them to feel some type of backlash. But Sega goes multi-plat at this time, and its first true game that's a foray into the multi-platform space is Sonic Heroes. And I'm assuming that, and this is the best version, the best reviewed version of Sonic Heroes. I'm using the Xbox version. And I'm assuming with that comes the fans of Sonic from back in the day, whether it be on the Dreamcast, because a lot of people from the Dreamcast moved over to a console like the Xbox. Sega had that previous relationship with Microsoft, and Sega was giving the Xbox a lot of exclusives from, you know, Sega's catalog. So a lot of people did move over from the Dreamcast to the X, naturally so. So I think this is really indicative of just the downwards trajectory of the Sonic franchise, or at least of 3D Sonic games by this point. Not to say that Sonic Heroes is a bad game, but in the eyes of critics, this is where Sonic is starting to go downhill. And then we continue to move forward and we see Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow the Hedgehog, despite it being one of my favorite Sonic games, isn't a good game. And critics thought so, rightfully so. And it's kind of one of those time at the time where Sonic needed to pick it up, because I'm going to compare this to Mario in a second, but Mario was just continuing to get better and better. And Mario is the most prominent platformer, period. When a platformer comes out, it's gonna get compared to Mario in some way, shape, or form, at least at this point, because you have PlayStation releasing platformers, a lot of them very good, but nothing is still touching Mario in terms of sheer quality and I guess just the way people look at it. Mario's still the household name. Sonic at one point was a household name, but they lost their way. And with Sonic 06 being the blunder that it was, people were tired of Sonic and I thought it needed to change. This game, straight up, from not only the glitches but the quality, like Sonic, none of the Sonic characters, none of the characters, period, just controlled right in this game. It felt like a mess. The level design, just boring, uninspired, and bad. Like you just get into you either get into hallways, or it's either a hallway or a room of enemies that you gotta kill. Then you hit a switch, you go to the next room. That Sonic 06 gameplay loop, and it just gets really tedious. Each stage has this gimmick and none of the gimmicks work well at all. It just feels like a garbled up mess. And anytime they do something interesting with the level design, it just feels like they give you a bunch of different paths that all don't feel like they really make the game feel any different. You don't feel rewarded for taking any of those paths, because it doesn't necessarily feel like skill that gets you to those paths. It feels like the game maybe choosing when you want to go on those different paths. The best way I can explain it is in like Kingdom Valley. The different paths don't really feel like a reward. I don't feel like I'm rewarded for going on an upper or lower path with like getting somewhere faster or having an easier time because I executed something well at a different part of the stage. I just don't feel that with it. And I feel like a lot of people would agree with me on that point. Like, you should, if you're gonna give me different paths, I should be rewarded because I was better at the game, not because the game threw a bunch of stuff at me and I decided to go on one of the paths because I could see that path clearly. You know what I mean? And ultimately, this will be the demise of Sonic had it been the last game. But we got Sonic Unleashed, and Sonic Unleashed reviewed a lot better. The Wii and PS2 version actually at the time reviewed a lot better. I remember a lot of people actually liking those versions of the game a lot more than the HD versions, rightfully so, because the Werehog just was a mess. And with specifically the adventure style, you can see a clear decline and essentially execution and just overall that style. But when we look at Boost, there wasn't really a clear decline. The only Boost game that was really inherently not good was Sonic Forces. Sonic Unleashed, despite reviewing poorly at the time, was mostly reviewed poorly because of the Werehog, not necessarily because of, you know, the daytime stage. You had things like the Werehog, the medals, just things basically padding out what was essentially a 2 to 3 hour game into a 12-hour game. Sonic Unleashed was just too long for its own good. But then we got Sonic Colors, and that really changed all that. If you've noticed something, this is the first game in green on Metacritic since Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast for the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, at least the main three. I said at least twice, didn't I? Jesus. And that's where you get this Sonic and Sega and everybody involved in the marketing with it saying this is where Sonic found its foothold in 3D. Because this is the first game that reviewed well for Sonic in years. Despite there being good qualities about a lot of the games on this list, I mean, I think Sonic Heroes, despite a lot of my issues with it, is a game that's definitely gotten worse as I've gotten older and can realize a lot more of those issues, and I get frustrated a lot more with the game, especially because of some of its level design just being copy and pasted multiple times. A lot of the game just feels tediously long. You know, it has that issue of, you know, multiple the room combat that I hate. I mean, I talked about this in my Sonic combat video that I made. It was my Mob Shadicstick 100. Y'all should check that out. I worked really hard on that video, so it'll be linked right now in a card or something, or at the end of the video. But despite this game having a lot of flaws, I thought it was a solid experience overall, and I still think that now. But because of the way reviewers review Sonic games and critics view Sonic game is, a Sonic game should be as good as a Mario game. Which, I mean, I'm not gonna say it isn't a fair thing to say, considering Sonic is probably the reason why we have multiple gaming consoles and platforms right now. I mean, people are gonna say it's Sega Genesis, but Sonic was the game that kind of defined that. Someone could compete with Mario for once and be just as good and be seen as just as polished. You bet I'm gonna say Sonic is the reason we have things like the PlayStation and Xbox. But overall, I just think the way Sonic games have reviewed essentially have dictated how Sonic Team develops their games. Because at this point, they were getting negative reviews because it didn't feel super fresh. They kept adding things that didn't feel necessary. And overall, that's what hurt the games. Here we get the Sonic Unleashed. And again, they're still adding unnecessary stuff, but they cut out all the fat, release Sonic Colors, and then this amazing experience. And that's really all that matters. They want to get that score higher, and they want Sonic to reach the heights that it did in the 90s. There's not a single 3D Sonic game in the top 100 games of all time by user score. And I feel like it's about time that we get that with a Sonic the Hedgehog title. When we compare Sonic to Mario, it's just kind of a murder stop. Like, every single Mario game, at least every single 3D Mario game, even at its lowest, is still above a 90 on Metacritic. And that just goes to show you the amount of staying power, the amount of quality control that has been maintained with this series. And I think we should expect that with Sonic, but at the same time, I'm worried that people will just compare it to Mario in the sense that it needs to be the same, and less so that it needs to have the same amount of quality put into it. Sonic games are unique. There's a different approach to how gameplay is treated. With a Mario game, it's less about, trial and error and getting the fastest time. It's less about it being arcadey and more about it feeling like you're having fun at all points in time. Whereas the Sonic game takes this gameplay philosophy in which you essentially need to be good. You need to get good. I just feel like Sonic the Hedgehog in the past decade or so just hasn't had that. They haven't had that banger that they've needed. Sonic Generations was the last time I really thought that the Sonic franchise could really revolutionize itself. Sonic Forces I had hope with, because first trailer admittedly was everything a Sonic fan could ever want or need. But day by day we kept seeing things and it just didn't seem like they were keeping that quality assurance that they had with Sonic Colors or Sonic Generations, or even something like a Sonic Unleashed where it felt like they were striving to push the bar higher. But Sonic Frontiers, I feel like they're pushing the bar higher. If you watched my last video, I talked about how Sega said that they were pushing to make Sonic again a quality franchise, and that's all I want to hear. The game was originally supposed to release last year, but they pushed it back because they thought it was imperative to do so. And I hope reviewers see that. I hope they don't just see a franchise that's getting back on its feet, but a franchise that has solidified its stay in the gaming realm. Hopefully Sonic Frontiers reviews well, because if it reviews well and if it's actually a good game, Sonic Team will keep making games like it, and they'll see that they'll have to put in that amount of work to continually get great experiences from the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, to please fans, to please critics, and to please gamers all alike. But tell me how you feel about this all in that comment section down below. This has been your man Shadicstick. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Tell me how I sound on my new mic. My girl bought this for me. This has been your man Shadicstick. I'm out of here. Peace. Have a good one.
See you, Space.